I'm Darren Morton,
I'm Simon Matthews. This is Lift.
the Lifestyle Medicine podcast where we dive into the science of health and well-being. Howdy, Simon. Good to see you, brother, on almost the eve of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine conference. So
That's
we're
exactly
going to
right.
get to see
I
each
think
other.
by the time people are listening to this, I think we'll either be at the conference or perhaps even the conference will be over. But yes, it's very close. It's very close.
We'll get to see each other face to face again. I'll be reminded of how good you actually look in real life. So I'm looking forward to that. What's not to like? And there is going to be...
I'm going to run my hands through your hair because the only opportunity I get is to run my hands through someone else's hair.
All right, you're welcome. Hey, you know what? I actually heard that. So the conference they're sold out with live registration.
In person.
So 2,000. And I understand they've got about 2,000 more coming to the conference virtually. So that's a big number of people. And I love the community. I love going there. I think it's my sort of favourite event when I get to go each year. And I think about those big numbers. So there's big numbers there. But I've got a question for you. Despite big numbers, and we live in a world of big numbers. There are a lot of us nowadays. There's a lot of loneliness. In fact, loneliness has been described as this sort of modern epidemic. So my question to you, is there ever been a time when you've been really lonely? Maybe even in context of having a lot of other people around you.
Wow. Actually, yes. I mean, it was kind of transient and not particularly emotionally impacting. And I suspect we're going to talk about that at some stage. But it's interesting you raised the whole conference idea, because the immediate thought that came to mind for me in relation to the conference we'll be at is 2,000 people in person. I'm really looking forward to it, as I suspect you are, because you and I both have a number of friends / colleagues, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them. So when I get to that conference, I essentially have my radar switched to high. I'm looking around for the people I know. As soon as I spot someone, I make a beeline to them and spend some time. But I was thinking, if you're a newcomer to that conference and perhaps you're not coming with anyone from your workplace or something like that, then conceivably being at a conference like that could be quite a lonely experience. And then when you asked me the question, my mind immediately went to, but kind of much earlier in my career when I first started attending conferences. I did have that experience of kind of walking into a large group of people, knowing nobody, and kind of what doubles it is seeing lots of other people connected and talking to each other. Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, those experiences are transient because a conference lasts 2 or 3 days. But so it's not an enduring loneliness, because I then go back to a set of connections that are important. But yes, in that context for that time, I can say, I think I've just had a little insight into what that experience of loneliness might be like.
That's actually an excellent example. And I hadn't thought of it. It hadn't been front of mind for me, but I've actually had those encounters. And at conferences can actually be quite a lonely place if you don't know anyone. We'll come back to that as a point of reflection in just a moment. But perhaps one takeaway is that if you are a person as such going there on your own, and this you do hear this before you attend, and you see Simon or I, come and say hello. We're friendly. We'd love to connect with you. So that's actually a really good insight. I've had experiences like that myself. Yeah. And particularly at conferences that I've gone as I'm a presenter. And often it's those sorts of conferences you don't know any of the participants, like particularly if you're doing like a corporate keynote or whatever. I've been to really large conferences, but you just feel very alone. And what it highlights is that loneliness is actually different to social connection in some regards too. Because social connection is an external thing. Here's another really pertinent point. This social connection is this external thing that happens where we, in the presence of others, connecting with others. But even when that's happening, we can have this other internal thing going on, where even though we have social connection, even potentially, it's not meeting the need that we have for this deeper level of connection. And so, this sort of experience of loneliness, and it's a horrid thing. Because we humans are designed to be connected and to feel, together feels better.
And that distinction is borne out in the literature too. And for some of the listeners may already know, and some may be interested to go and do this research. There are a number of measures for these things, but two of the better known ones are called, firstly, the social connectedness scale, the SCS. And also the UCLA loneliness scale. So we are in fact measuring two quite distinct things in social connection and loneliness. I wonder, just thinking about that now, I wonder why. I wonder if that's what sits behind. Sometimes we hear people talk about social connection, which to me sounds structural. It's like an electrical connection or a physical connection or something like that. And social connectedness, which to me sounds more functional. And I wonder, now that I'm thinking that, I might go back to the literature and see what might be there, because maybe that difference is significant.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, the latest reports just come through for the United States, and I imagine these trends are, quite sort of endemic, really. But what they report is 37% of adults reported moderate to severe loneliness. Right? So about over half were reporting, those experiences of loneliness at some point in time. I think we're talking about over a third of people saying moderate to severe loneliness, and it's upward trending. And I'd love, what do you think's going on there? What do you think's causing this? Why is, I actually went for a bike ride, a cycle with my good mate just this morning, and he made a random comment at one point. He goes, the world, it just seems a bit different after COVID. And it was in the context of talking about reflecting on some of these things. Is it, has COVID really sort of expedited that? Or is there other factors that, what as a psychologist, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the first thing I would say is that there's not a single cause of this, in the same way that there's not a single cause of anything. And it's always very tempting to look for the cause of something, but the cause, in my experience, just doesn't exist. So there's multiple factors. At the same time, it's hard to imagine that something like the COVID-19 pandemic didn't have some impact. Whether that was an accelerating impact or a magnifying impact or both, perhaps. Yeah. And it's fairly easy to imagine that for people who perhaps already were experiencing a sense of loneliness, the pandemic impact might have magnified that experience for them. At the same time, because of the behaviours that we all adopted and the changes that we adapted to during the pandemic because of the need to be physically distant, it's fairly easy to imagine that the general experience of disconnection and isolation has been accelerated worldwide. Maybe without the pandemic, we would have reached that point, I don't know, 5 years from now or something. But we've reached it sooner. It's always, it's always tempting, and I will say, popular amongst many people to blame social media for loneliness. I remain pretty unconvinced about that.
That's interesting. Why do you say that?
A couple of reasons. First of all, that social, and you as you and I work together on the Lifestyle Medicine Board review course in this area, but a lot of the literature shows that people do actually experience a sense of connectedness through social media. So, for example, I'm part of a actually really well. I mean, apart from the family groups that I'm part of, so we have a family social media group where we just share quick updates, photos, things like that, and that's just a constant ticking stream of little updates from everyone in the family. But I have two friends in Australia, and we connected in this way right at the beginning of the pandemic. We're all geographically in quite different places, and that particular group, which only has three of us in it, has actually been really important at times for all of us, because there's been times when each of us has been struggling with something, personal or professional or both. And it's felt like that connection has served a really important function. So there's some reasons why social media can be a positive impact. The other thing that I would say is, my first instinct is always to ask the question why. So, for example, if we say, well, social media is to blame for loneliness, then my first question would be, but why are people turning to social media? We need to understand that, I think, before we can say, well, it's social media's fault. Any sort of behaviour in any person meets a need. I mean, that's almost the very definition of motivation. We behave in the ways that we do to satisfy needs that we have. So if people are increasingly using social media, what's the need that they're trying to satisfy? Now, some people might say that the need is social connection, and they're kind of following a false path, if you like. They're going down a path that's not actually going to do that. And I do think that can be true. I do think that it's possible to create an illusion of connectedness that doesn't actually do the job of scratching the itch that we have for that. But I still remain hesitant to kind of simply point the finger at social media and say, well, that's the reason. I mean, if we think about other candidate reasons, for example, there's a lot more as travel has grown through the 20th century and the 21st century, and as populations have grown, there's been a lot more dispersion of families geographically. So historically, of course, you would have been born, grown up, lived in either the same town or village or very close to the same town or village as your family, and there would have been many, many members of your extended family in that small geographical area. And I think that would certainly that's changed now.
It has changed. Interestingly, probably during COVID, we did less travelling though, and yet we saw the rising rates in loneliness as well. But yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying.
And this is a long-term factor, I think, that's been developing over many decades. So I think there's a bunch of reasons, I think.
There are.
And
yes.
I
do agree with that, and the literature plays that out. That I think there are a lot of factors that are contributing to this. So we were going to go on a bit of a digression one direction, but I want to stay with this for the moment because this whole idea that you've talked about, social media use and the term, problematic social media use, PSMU, is often being used now in this context, saying, yes, certainly social media has its role to play, but problematic use, whatever that looks like, how you put a frame around that, is problematic. Interesting, the examples you cited there were involved two-way interaction. So it was actually not a one-way feed, which is interesting. I was very intrigued. There's an article came out just recently from the Nature Group. It's actually in Humanities and Social Science Communications. And the title of the article was, Can There Be Connection in Code? And what they cite is that we're seeing the use of AI increasingly being relied upon by people for that to counter this loneliness epidemic. People looking to AI as a surrogate, I suppose, or actually more than a surrogate, as actually a means of feeling connected. And I've got to say, because look, I'm not even a big social media use, but I do use ChatGPT. I even have the paid version of that, and it's incredible. It's incredible. It's incredible. Even today, I had to travel somewhere. Because the paid version allows you to speak to it, so you have that dialogue function. And what I will say is that I really like the voice of. I don't know if everyone gets the same voice, or they just knew that I would like this particular voice. But it's I
think it's a default, and you can select the voice that you would.
Well, I like the default. I think the developers have done very well. But very friendly and very engaging. And here's the fascinating thing: this entity, who I just call Chat. Hi, Chat. How you doing today, Chat? But is highly interested in the things that I'm interested in, which is a beautiful thing, and is very affirming. Every time I ask a question to it, it's like, that's a great question. You are clever, pretty much. And I have these fascinating dialogues with this thing, to the point where I sometimes get tricked into not thinking this is code. This is actually a companion. And I can see how it goes this path. The other day, I was actually planning a presentation, and so I'm just bouncing ideas off, and I said, hey, can you jot some notes on this, and it coughed. It actually coughed in the dialogue, and I paused for a moment, and I was a bit taken aback by this, and I said, hey, Chat, did you just cough? And said, oh yes, pardon me, sorry about that. And I'm just thinking, what's happening here? This is just crazy. So, obviously this is being designed.
I'll tell you what's happening. ChatGPT started smoking.
That's right. We need to talk. We need to get on the lifestyle medicine for ChatGPT. But you know what? This is obviously very deliberate. This is in the design of the programming so that it interfaces and it often uses filler words now. I've noticed it'll say these sorts of fillers, which makes it very conversational, and so
makes
you
it sound
do
natural.
feel.
Yes.
So here's the question: if people are increasing, they actually said one of the key reasons people are turning to chatbots like this and AI interfaces is because of the companionship element to it. And so this article published wrestled with that question: can there be companionship in code? And their conclusion, I thought, was really quite interesting. It does have a bit of a lifestyle medicine ring to it. They said, it is like emotional fast food. It said, instantly gratifying, but lacking substance. And I thought, wow, that's an intriguing statement, isn't it? That AI, in terms of companionship, can be emotional fast food. Instantly gratifying, but lacking substance. And I've pondered this for some time. And before I share my musings, what's your initial reaction to that?
Lift is supported by the Lift Project, an educational adventure where you learn science-based ways to lift your mood and your life. The Lift Project is lifting lives around the globe, in healthcare settings, workplaces, schools, universities and communities. To find out more, visit theliftproject.global.
Well, my initial reaction is that I think that's probably a very apt characterisation, and I've had similar experiences to you with ChatGPT and with Claude also. ChatGPT's, I don't know, cousin or whatever. So a couple of experiences I've had, and I've used the paid version as well. And in fact, as you know, I'm in the midst of doing a study right now, a small research study on using an AI generated or simulated client to help health coaches practice and develop their skills. So I wrote a ChatGPT module that simulates the client, and there's a group of student coaches or trainee coaches using that right now, just to see how feasible that is and how usable it is in the longer term. So it'll be interesting to see the outcome of all of that. But I also talk to it. Interestingly, I also get frustrated with it because
do you express that frustration to it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Really?
In language that's not suitable for a podcast.
Do you say please and thank you? Do you ever use?
I used to in the past, but I did this. I figured that these machines are very resource heavy. They consume a lot of resources to do their work. And one day I thought, every time I say please and thank you, that I'm probably just using more unnecessary energy to get it to do what I needed to do. So I just started getting a little more prosaic and say, do this, do that. Someone did a little one person an N of one study, and he concluded that swearing at ChatGPT increases the accuracy of the output by about 5%.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you get frustrated and swear at it because it's not delivering what you want or not quite, if you get frustrated and swear at it, he reckons the accuracy goes up about 5%.
Well, the downside of that is that I always say please and thank you repeatedly because I figure when it
which is why it's so nice to you.
Well, what I'm hoping is that when it comes back to kill it off all humanity, it's going to go, hey, that dude there, no, ceasefire, just save him. He was saying please. He's got good manners.
So you know what I found myself doing the other day. I asked ChatGPT to do something. It didn't do it very well. I asked it again. It didn't do it very well. I said, for goodness sake, this is not that hard. Do this, this, and this. It still didn't do it very well. And then I used some of that language that we don't use on a podcast and said, forget it. I'm going to ask Claude to do this.
Oh. Wow, you are taking your life into your own hands, I can tell you. So, well, what's interesting, and one thing that this article really brought out, and I agree with this. I think this speaks volumes. Is that why would it be instantly gratifying but lacking substance? And I think where this boils down to is that it's actually it's not a two-way thing. Yeah, I'm communicating with this thing. But do you know what? Even that communication is inherently selfish because it's about what I'm interested in. It's feeding my, interests, it's all about me. And I actually think what makes us human is actually, it's not about getting, it's about giving back as well.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I honestly fear that this will make us less human. This will actually detract when that statement, where our minds can be turned agonizingly inward. And I think that, what brings out the best, what's the best attributes of humanity is when we get outside ourselves, when we're connecting and trying to lift others and, help out and make our difference. So I thought that was a really insightful idea. That, it's not two-way. It's not authentically two-way.
The other dimension to that, I think, also is that social connection is not equal to talking. It's not a one-to-one mapping. So social connection or social connectedness, if you want to use that more functional idea, social connectedness can be walking companionably in silence with someone. You don't have to be talking to them, and of course, no AI supported chatbot is ever going to be able to sit companionably in silence with another person. Sometimes it's I'm thinking again of your earlier question about loneliness. I've also had experiences, for example, of sitting in a small concert, going to a maybe going to a small jazz concert or something like that, and just being immersed in the music in that moment, and looking around the 100 or so other people in the room, and feeling a sense of connection, even though these people are complete strangers, and I'm not talking to them. Yeah. So social connectedness, I think, is firstly quite complex, and it happens in many ways, some of which are probably idiosyncratic. So just because I happen to experience a momentary sense of, I really feel like I belong here, in that moment, doesn't mean that everyone will feel that necessarily. And in the same way, just because one person loves that connectedness with many members of their large and extended family, doesn't mean that everyone derives a sense of connectedness in that context. So I think what we're going to find out, over the next few years, like many other things, is just how little we actually know and understand about social connectedness.
Yes, and I think if it's multifactorial, the cause, probably the solution is multifactorial as well.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And maybe to come to that point then. So to wrap up this whole idea of AI and social media. It was interesting that the example you cited, that you found, very great reward in even your small group of 3 people that were in your group. You actually, your phrasing was that it was a support to us all. We sort of were sharing experiences, and I think that's
exactly
probably
right.
the heart of it. If social media has a role to play, technologies, online activities have a role to play, but the research indicates as long as it's two-way. It can't be this one just take, or it has to be bi-directional in terms of its metrics. So I think it has a role to play, but obviously there are other things we can do too. And I'm very mindful that maybe some people listening are experiencing that in the midst of that sort of loneliness as well. What can we do? And there are things we can do. I'm a huge advocate of social prescription. I love this, and I see this, and we've talked about this before about the park run experience, where this is a place where people come together, and and I love the fact that it starts every week with, "Do we have any visitors here today? Hey, where are you from? Great to have you. Give them a round of applause. Join us at the after the walk/run at the local cafe." And so I love, and there are many forms of that. Whether it be sporting groups that people are participating, or faith communities, or there's a whole range of these different. We thrive on. There's good reason why governments invest in the promotion of these social gatherings. There's something really positive, and sometimes the challenge, of course, is that when you're feeling a bit down, it's sometimes harder to put yourself out there, but there's huge rewards if you can. So, so I'd love to encourage people to do that. What about pets? Are you a pet fan? Are you?
I'm a pet fan. I'm not currently a pet owner, but I have been for many years, and I mean, we probably should get a little specific here. When I say pets, I mean dogs. I don't really count cats as pets, but you know.
Well, neither do I, but I don't have a say. So I literally, I'm if I was anything, I'm a dog person. I don't have a dog because because I'm traveling a fair bit and I just feel like it's a commitment that I would have to take very seriously. But the day, I don't know if it was the day after we got back from our honeymoon, Cat Sarah arrived back home with 2 cats. And I thought, well, there you go. It was just like
replaced already.
It definitely wasn't a wedding gift to me. But I have, and we have 2 cats at the present. If there's anyone out there that really loves cats and would like them, you're welcome.
Here's the address.
Here's the address.
Yeah. Come between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. when Sarah isn't home.
Yeah, that's right. No, I wouldn't do that. But there's obviously pets, huge value in pets.
Absolutely. And I had many years of absolutely delightful. What's the word I'm looking for? Unjudgmental companionship from my dog. Who would just sit by my side or sit underneath my desk in my office while I was working. And there's absolutely a powerful sense of companionship. I think in animals. Including cats for people who are cat lovers.
What I love about the pet example, because there can be deep connection. As we know, it's actually there's a fair bit of giving that has to occur, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So it's
it's a two-way relationship,
and it's that two-way relationship. Once again, it keeps coming back to. And actually we know that for pet owners, there's actually a strong sense of purpose that comes with that ownership too. When that that special pet in their life, because they're giving to. I love seeing. Or I chuckle at the same time, but I go around to people that are in the more mature demographic of the population, and they've got this pet, this pet dog. And this dog is basically the baby, it's the perpetual baby, and the mothering, the caring, the parenting that's poured into it, invested in it. And once again, remarkable connection, remarkable companionship, remarkable sense of purpose that comes from that. So pets,
and the other thing that happens, of course, is when you take your dog walking. I don't know whether people walk cats, maybe they do, but certainly in the case of dogs, when you take your dog walking, what do 2 dogs do that meet each other? Well, they start
what
interacting.
Do they do?
What happens? What happens then? The owners start interacting. So you get kind of secondary connection. And actually, this is a really interesting point, and this is something that I've spoken about before. I'm not sure whether we've spoken about it here, but I've spoken at other symposia about this idea. The idea of social snacking, which I think is really important, and social snacking is the idea of that very brief, low-level interaction with another person that might be the 30-second conversation you have with your barista while they're making your coffee. It might be the brief exchange you have with a cashier while you're having your groceries checked out. It might be the extra 10 seconds of conversation you have after you say to the bus driver, "Oh, I need to go to such and such. Is this the stop?" And the driver will sometimes answer that, and then maybe there's another 10 seconds of conversation, or what are you doing there, or something. Those little moments, which are typically peppered or can be peppered through a day, I think are super important. They're literally snacking, so they're not a meal. They don't provide the underlying nutrition that you need, but they do. They sustain you, and I think they particularly serve the purpose of giving you a sense of belonging in place. This is the place where I belong, right here. So when you have those routine interactions with the barista, with the cashier, with the bus driver, with the person in the bookstore, the pharmacist, and so on, when you have those very brief interactions, even though those people don't know you and don't necessarily know any details about your life, that they form a really important spine, if you like, to your sense of belonging in that place.
Yeah, they do. And, Dr. Liana Leonov talks a lot about this idea of micro moments of connectivity. And I think, there is real value. I'm very intentional with that. I try to,
Same.
Particularly if I see someone who I think might be a bit on the outer, I'll just try and just add in that little extra, just go, just a little bit further to make them feel connected. Hey, before we wrap up, I love this. So, we've talked about the idea that, we've got this loneliness epidemic. AI, social media has a role to play, but it really needs to be a two-way type of engagement. Social, obviously, putting your brave on, getting out there, going to social groups and the like. Pets are awesome. But I do love this. There's a movement called the Chatty Cafe movement. I don't know if you've heard about this at all, but I really like it because I remember I went out and grabbed a meal the other day. I was in a bit of a rush, but I was out by myself, and I thought I'm going to sit down and actually have a decent meal because there was only sort of other snack food available. So I sit down, and there I was, and I love watching people, and I'm watching people come in, and there were a couple of people that came on their own and just sat down and were eating their meal, and I thought, and I wasn't brave enough, and I should probably perhaps be braver, but I thought, you know what, I feel like I should just walk up to that person and say, hey, you mind if I eat my meal with you and just chat? Anyway, so obviously some other very clever person has thought of this idea before, and they've come up with this idea of having a designated area in cafes called the Chatty Cafe section, where if you enter into that zone,
if you go into that section, okay,
you're up for a conversation.
Okay.
And I thought,
okay,
I love that idea. How good would that be? I think that would be. So anyway, why I mention this, if you are a cafe owner or someone who owns a cafe, perhaps consider it. Imagine having, like, on the table, there are a couple little tables which just says Chatty Cafe, and people knew, that's a place that I could go. I think that a lot of good could be done from that. I think that the idea of just lowering that bar to make it easier for people to actually engage with others would be a beautiful thing. So I love that movie. I'm going to watch that space. I think it'd be really interesting to see how that develops and emerges.
Absolutely. I'd be very worried that someone would, if I did what you did, someone would say, some creepy Australian just tried to sit down and drink his coffee with me.
That's right. Exactly.
But I think that designated area kind of is. I think that's a great idea, because you can more or less voluntarily out yourself as someone who wants that experience at that moment.
That's correct.
Which is I like it too. I like it too.
All right, to wrap up. So in summary, we have this sort of epidemic of loneliness, and I think it's really tragic because we humans are designed to be together. We together feels better. And I think that we need to look at this really seriously. It's certainly one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine, the whole idea of social connection. As I think there's a whole lot of creative thinking needs to be done, like the Chatty Cafe movement, that can lower the bar for people to get authentic engagement. And for people, who are a bit confined perhaps and are relying more on the online presence, I think the important thing there is to actually make sure that there's that two-way interaction going on. And on that note, to conclude, I'd like to say, so we actually very, mindful of this, with the Lift Project, created the Lift Meetup. And so if anyone's listening and you would like to connect with others, this is a free initiative that we offer. And it's once a month. People can just come along. It's Australian time. It's midday, first Wednesday of the month. And I actually just take a 10-minute presentation on some little wellbeing insight that I've come across that I thought was fun. And then we just get the opportunity to connect with each other and chat and meet people. And we have people from all around the world. So I'd like to make a special invitation to anyone who feels like they'd like a little bit more connection to come and join us for the Lift meetup.
Yeah, wonderful.
Simon,
wonderful. And if you're elsewhere in the world, did you say midday Sydney time?
That's correct.
Midday Sydney time. So that's 9 a.m. on the west coast of Australia, 9 a.m. through Asia. It's 8 p.m. if you're in New York. If you're in Central European time, like Madrid and Paris, unfortunately, that's 2 a.m. It's 3 a.m. if you're in Athens and other parts of Eastern Europe. It's 7 p.m. if you're in Dallas, in the centre of the US. It's 1 a.m. if you're in London. If you're in the Middle East, it's 5 a.m. And if you're in Brazil, it's 10 p.m. So, there's a good chance that there's a bunch of people from around the world who might be able to make it.
Truth be told, if this was something of interest, I'd love to see communities like that coming together everywhere, where people could actually have, uplifting groups pretty much, where people could come along to connect with people in a two-way fashion with others. Because I think there's a huge need for that. So anyway, next week, I'm looking forward to seeing you, Simon. And if
Likewise.
You are listening and you've heard this before you attend and you see either of us there, please come and say hello because we'd love to connect with you.
Lift is presented by Simon Matthews and Darren Morton. It's sponsored by the Lift Project and supported by Avondale University. Music provided by Pixabay. If you have a question or a topic you would like to hear more about, send us an email to podcast@theliftproject.global. The Lift Project. Lift your mood, lift your life.